The lines are very clear. You'll see the dental molding on the top. And that was, the style of when we were becoming a nation. When we go inside to the house, you will notice every room has Corinthian columns, there's an urn, and that's the Greek revival. So during the time of the construction of the house, they're digging up Herculaneum, they're digging up Pompeii, and they got the inspiration from that classical world. So you will see that reflected in the art, in the architecture, in the furniture. It's throughout the house, okay? Before we head in, are there any questions, or would you like me to do more talking outside and then I can let you guys roam? You want to do more talking outside? Okay. So when we come into the entranceway, you will notice the high ceilings, okay? This house was an impressive house. Is it the most impressive house of that time? No, but it's definitely an impressive house for our area. The high ceilings add to that, a sense of awe. You would have noticed when you come in, you'll notice that the floor is not made out of marble. It is made out of a floor cloth called marmoleum that was actually hand painted to look like marble. And that floor cloth was a means of keeping the floor protected. So you can imagine the dirt would have been coming into the house. It wasn't paved, there would have been mud, people would have been trekking those kind of things into the entranceway. So that floor cloth, which was painted canvas many times over, would basically help protect the interior space of the house. When you come in, you will notice a stove right in the entranceway. That stove was a coal-burning stove that basically helped heat the entranceway. And you'll notice on the left that staircase. That staircase helps really well funnel the heat upstairs. It funnels it so well that a few weeks ago we had the fire department here, and he's like, this would really heat up the house really quick. It would really burn thanks to that air circulation because it works so well. And when we go up to the third floor, where it will be really warm, I'm going to let you know now, there are these tiny windows, and those windows let in some of the air that we desperately need on that third floor of the house. When you come into the house, you can go to the right or to the left. Right behind us on the right here is Maria Bartow's sitting room. That's where she would have received her guests. You would have come in, you couldn't just go see her, you had to, the servant would have come to the door. If they were unavailable, you would have left your calling card, and they would have, written you a note and gotten in touch. If you were, if she was agreeable, you would have probably sat in the sitting room, had, a cup of tea, and she might have been sitting there with the sewing kit, going. And you'll notice that piece there in the entranceway, which also was like a writing table. We only have 5 pieces that belong to the family, okay? So everything else has either been purchased by the museum, donated by members, but it is of that time period. I will point out the 5 pieces. You will see in her sitting room 2 paintings behind that are of Clarina Bartow and her husband William Gage. There is a couple of embroidery work on the 2nd floor, and there's a very famous desk that I will point out before we go upstairs. So if there's no other questions, we'll head on in. So you can go into the parlor. I will meet you all in the double parlor at one point because we do have enough room for everyone to spread out there. But you also have the orangerie, Mr. Bartow's library here, which is not our bookstore, it's a bookstore. It's our gift shop, sorry. And the bathrooms are located behind that. There's one bathroom. There's the dining room, and I'll meet you all in the double parlor I'll give you about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll go on up. I'll let you go on up there, but we'll meet again in the double parlor. Okay? All right. Thank you. And from that period, we have the French, the Italian, the English. And you'll notice that, the ceramics and the porcelain start to become much more colorful and different. Now, in some of the other homes, you have someone who's going around scraping the crumbs, right, with the little piece of silver and stuff. But this is now set for dessert. Okay. All right, so after dessert, we would meet into those 2 other rooms. So I'll meet you in the double parlor, okay? Manhattan in the 1880s. And those were like, J.P. Morgan's house, right? It takes a while for electricity to make it out here. Okay? And there is no running water. When the Bartows lived here, the servants are carrying water. So the bathrooms are only put in and the plumbing by the International Garden Club much, much later, so after 1914. You would have had the doors open when you had a big party, okay? And you can imagine someone playing the piano and people dancing, but otherwise the rooms were, kept closed as the men sat here talking politics, having their cigar and cognac, and the women would have been on that side discussing other elements of a more feminine nature. Again, lumber to lay the tracks, and then, we know what the area looked like before. By the way, on the other side of this wall, there's another tiny little painting. That painting would have been of the same time period, but that area you will never recognize today. That's where Yankee Stadium is. So have a quick look. It's another little, pastoral scene of, cows and farms, but it does not look like that way today. So I do invite you to go pop in there. If you haven't been to our orangery, okay, please pop in there. That initially would have been a dirt floor, and the architectural firm that the Garden Club had hired had put in the floor, had attached it to the house. It was no longer just these 20 by 20 glass windows. It becomes part of the structure, and there was an actual vent bringing in heat into that room. Okay. The different rooms. Across the hall is George's room. George was the son who didn't go off to college like his brothers. He was into racing horses. His cousins, the warlords, had thoroughbreds, so we know that they were into racing. That's why there's like a horsewhip on the bed. You'll see the painting in the background. And you will notice, one other piece of furniture that's important is the mom's bedroom. You'll notice her bed. Her bed has like a crown to it. That piece is by a French-American furniture maker, Lanrière, and that bed is, the fact that those two pieces are together is really important. It's very complete. And the orange kind of curtains that kind of hang with it, you'll notice that they would have been a means of netting to keep the mosquitoes out of the room. And that would have been the fashion of that time. Okay, so that tangerine color comes from that. I'll be upstairs in a few minutes to answer some questions, okay? Their aunt, and it looks like, something you would find in a cemetery. On the other side, the one by Abigail Walker, that was made for 3 children who died before the age of 10. And that was very common, right? People have a lot of children, but you also have a lot of infant mortality. These pieces had pieces of hair that were woven into the work, and it's also watercolor. And there was a huge obsession with hair. People had lockets of hair. You would remember somebody, your loved one, maybe a romantic partner. The other house I've done some research on has a piece of Washington horse's hair in a locket. I mean, people are obsessed with hair, but it was part of the art of the time. So this would have been something that the servant would have put in to get hot, and then a young girl might have been sitting here, right, and curling her hair. So good guess. Have you tried that?
I just took a lucky guess.
All right. What about this?
A pan?
It is a pan. What would I do with this in the bedroom?
冰箱炉
Toilet.
Put it
Put it
here.
there. And get fire.
But what am I going to do with it? Am I going to cook dinner? What am I going to do with it?
Fire was that water?
Oh, good try. So they would have put hot stones in here. You would heat the stones by the fire, get them nice and hot. And then the servant would come down, pull your sheet, and warm your bed. So it was nice and toasty when you got in there in the winter, right? Now, that's not a bad servant job. This job here is not the job anybody wanted, right? This was the chamber pot. So, if you were the youngest servant, okay, and I'm looking around, who's the youngest one here? My eyes are on you, mister, okay? You had a really not fun job. It was your job to empty that. Do you know what went in there? You want to tell your brother, your cousin, who's that? Poop would go in there, okay? So, early in the morning, right, that you might have used that in the middle of the night, okay? And the youngest domestic servant would come in the morning and empty that. Now, if you were in France, you know, during the time of Louis XIV, that was considered a huge honor to be the person to empty the pot, okay? By our standards, not the same, right? I'll also invite you in some of the rooms, you'll notice there's like a little bell. This one says maid. When we go up to the third floor, you'll see the bell system that is in place. That wasn't the original bell system, but that would have been what they used, right? So that would have indicated that somebody needed something. But you can see what people were doing, right? You spent a lot of time in your room. You might have learned how to learn your letters, right? By sampling, you might have played with a doll. And you would have had the domestic help helping you put on these hoop skirts. These hoop skirts were made with whale bones. And then you had to have somebody help you put on the corset. Now, I have read somewhere it was, I think, 16 or 18 inches. And I took my tiniest student who was like a gymnast and a synchronized skater. And I took 16 or 18 inches and I asked her to come at the front. We could not get the thing around her. There was no way. So you can't imagine how uncomfortable those girls were, you know? And layers upon clothes and no air conditioning, right? So you can imagine how terrible it was. One other thing. So this piece here should not be in this room, but this is, you know, one of the rooms, it would be for a bedroom. This is a men's shaving mirror, okay? So you'll notice all the locks. Anything that was important, you wanted to lock up, okay? Because you didn't want somebody taking away your jewelry or your silverware. And, you know, they really had a big distrust of some of the poor workers. Their understanding was very different than what we, you know, what we understand today. The bed here, this is a Duncan Fife bed, and that bed in that room, if you can just pop over, that was that French bed I was telling you about. That was one of the prize collections. All right, I'm going to pop into that room and I'll just point out a few other things, and if I can get some of you to switch, I'll go. The tea, yeah, they're little, yeah. I have, when we go into George's room, I'll point that out. Okay. All right. Because they had all kinds of lung problems, you know, and you have to remember there's no penicillin, there's no antibiotics yet, and you would have had people that had all kinds of problems. What do you think that is? You have something like that at home, but it's not something that looks like that. You probably bring it to school every day.
A backpack?
Oh, it's not a backpack. It's in your backpack.
A pencil case?
That's a pencil case, yeah. So you would have had paper in there. you might have had, this would have been your pen, okay? You would have dipped that into the ink, right? And you would have written your notes. Yeah, and notice again the lock. And a lock there, right? There's locks on everything. Okay, I'm going to point out one more thing. Sorry, can I get back there? I'm sorry, guys. I know we're really tight. Sorry. Behind the door, here's a hidden chamber pot. Okay. I don't know if you can all see it. Whoa, right there. Let me just close the door and I'll open it up again. See it? So that's a much more discreet bathroom. Okay. All right, and the last thing I'm going to point out, they used it because you only heated up the water once, right? So everybody used that same water. So that would have been the fancy porcelain thing would have been used on a daily basis to clean your face, right? To clean under your arms. This would have been, I don't want to say once a week, but it would have been used less frequently than we use them today. Definitely no daily showers, right? And you know that expression, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater? That was the last one who got washed. Mr. Bartow's bedroom. So they didn't sleep together. We know that they had relations because they had all these kids, right? But they had separate spaces. If you look around, you can see things like here's another desk for the embroidery work. This particular desk here is an important piece of furniture. This comes to us from Theodosia Bartow, who married Aaron Burr. And that's how come, you know, the guy with Hamilton, like the guy who shot him, that's why this is in the museum. So they were connected. And based on the literature I've read, Aaron Burr did visit the Bartows, right, and was in the area quite often because he was married into the family, okay? You'll see the harpsichord there, some more children's toys, and an important book that every house that could have one is the family Bible. Family Bible would have been used to record births, deaths, marriages. That was your family genealogy, all in that one book. So that was an important book, and if you'll notice, there's even like little locks on this side. You wanted to keep that safe. Okay? Any questions?
So
All
it's
right.
a Bible and a notebook? Like they just...
So in the front is like who it belongs to, and then there's like a page where you would record all these important life events.
Okay.
So it was your family history in that book that you got passed down, right? And it would normally go to like the oldest, and you know, so hugely important. And the idea was that you know the family read from the family Bible, and you know. But you know, if you want to learn about a lot of those early families, that's a book you would need.
How far back does this Bible go?
I'm not supposed to open it, but let's see if it says anything. Bible Dictionary and Cities of the Bible, Holy Bible References. So
But it's not from
no,
Bartow.
no. Other than the desk here by Theodosia Bartow and Aaron Burr, that's the last piece I know that actually belonged to the family. And then you have the paintings on the wall, like the paintings here and the sandwood. They ironed, they dried. You'll see a machine that wrings the clothes. You'll see where they hung it. And you will also see other things like them drying spices. They did not read. Even though you'll see those books up there, they were illiterate. So we know that they came to the United States after or during the potato famine in Ireland. But this was a huge improvement over living, you know, in Ireland or living in New York City by the tenements where they would have been kept, right? Lots more space. So please do go upstairs and see that.